jump right in to lecture 2, which I call the natural hierarchy of money. This is a big lecture. This is the big picture of the whole course, basically. The whole course is right here in this lecture. This lecture is going to be online. It's going to be posted in Courseworks. And you won't really get all of it, okay, right now. But you will by the end of the course. And you will go back and you'll read it and you'll say, yes, in fact, he's right. That was the whole course, okay? But why do I do that? Why do I feed you with this fire hose right here at the very beginning? It's because I've discovered over time that what makes this subject matter difficult is that people have certain patterns of thought that they've acquired partly just by living in the world as consumers, but partly by taking economics classes, okay? And some of these patterns of thought stand in the way. And you have to put them aside and think in a different way. One of the things that economics students, particularly good economics students, find most difficult is this idea about expanding both sides of the balance sheet at the same time. It seems like a free lunch, and we're just like told there's no such thing as a free lunch. It's very, it's jarring, okay, mentally for good economics students to kind of understand how these operations work. The alchemy of banking, creating something from nothing. It seems it must be wrong, okay? So I'm putting it right up front at the beginning so that you see it, okay? And I'm not hiding it so that you address that underlying psychological unease right here at the beginning. Another issue is people are so used to thinking of money as a positive number that seeing it, you know, as a liability of the central bank, okay, on the liabilities is all like just very difficult. This is about understanding the difference between outside money and inside money, which we're going to be talking about. That's another problem. We're also very used to thinking of money as a creature of the nation state, okay? And today, I'm not going to really talk about the nation state at all. We're going to think of the central bank, as a banker's bank. And only tomorrow, only on Wednesday, will we bring in the nation state. And finally, and that this sort of obstacle, psychological obstacle, it gives me the title of the lecture. We're so used, you know, in economics to thinking about supply and demand and general equilibrium and thinking of end goods. There's all these different goods and there's a relative prices between them that are moving around. So we think of all these goods as in some sense at the same level. And if you start to think of all the different monetary instruments as being at the same level with prices clearing, you will not really get how the system works. So I'm emphasizing that it's hierarchical. They're not at the same level. They only appear to be at the same level, and when crisis happens, you find out that they're not at the same level. That things that looked like they were equivalent, in fact, are not structurally. So this I'm bringing right into the center of our consciousness because it's one of the most challenging ideas for people to get. Now, that's why in this course, often people who don't have economics backgrounds do better, okay, at first, because they're not overcoming they just say, well, it's okay, that's fine. You know, they're not trying to be economists, okay. We can come back at the end. Nothing I'm saying is actually in contradiction to any of the economics that you know, okay? But it requires you, at least at the moment, to suspend your impulses, okay, in order to accept a kind of weird and new way of thinking about the world. And we'll integrate it in at the end. So that's all just by way of warning. So the very first sentence, always and everywhere, monetary systems are hierarchical. And when I want to start with this idea of hierarchy is the difference between money and credit. Money is better than credit, okay? Doesn't just cost more or something, it's qualitatively better. Credit is a promise to pay money. Money is money. Money is the thing that eliminates debts, the money that debts are canceled in, okay? Everyone knows that, okay? But the significance of that is often underestimated. This is the place to begin. All textbooks talk about money and credit like that. Okay. I'm going to, in order to really emphasize the hierarchy, I'm going to add a few more layers, okay? 4 layers in order to show, and there are many more layers than that, just to really build this idea of hierarchy. Let me get myself some more room here. And I'm going to think about a world where the ultimate money is not problematic at all. It's gold. Okay? You all probably know that at one point there was a gold standard, and some people think of that moment with nostalgia, and some people think of it as sort of archaic system that we pass through. We'll have those discussions later on. This is going to help us think about the hierarchy at the moment, because it's pretty clear in the gold standard what is the ultimate money. So let's start with gold as the ultimate money. Okay? Underneath gold, less good than gold, is national currencies. Currencies are promises to pay gold in the sense that there's a mint standard, there's a mint par, and the central bank of the country is meant to clear international accounts in the ultimate money, in gold. So there's national currency that's the liability of a central bank. We'll come to that in a minute. Underneath that are bank deposits. These are private banks that are issuing deposits. Deposits are promises to pay currency, not promises to pay gold. But so ultimately they're promises to pay gold, because if you get currency, you can turn it into gold. So, and then underneath deposits are all other kinds of credit. So we'll just call them securities, but it could also be loans of various kinds here. Well, that's clearly credit. You know, these are promises to pay, and this is money. Okay. When we say money, loosely, okay, where do we draw the line between money and credit? Let's see. In most textbooks, you talk about money and credit. You don't talk about four layers. Where do they draw the line? Okay. Well, they're different throughout time. This has sort of changed throughout history. One idea is maybe to draw it here, okay, saying that all this stuff is money and all this stuff is credit. Certainly that was a sort of 19th century view. People often did that, because banks, which are issuing deposits, are clearing those payments with currency, with national currency there. And so that's the ultimate payment domestically. So if you take a banking point of view, okay, take the point of view of a bank, maybe this stuff is money and this stuff is credit. But if you've had any, well, introductory economics or something, you will have heard of M2 and M3 and so forth. And they take the point of view of the consumer or the business, which is generally doing business with these deposit accounts here and thinking of money as everything above here, okay, and credit as everything below here. Okay? And if you've taken a course in international monetary economics, okay, you will know that it does you no good at all in paying international payments to have your own currency. You have to have the international currency. Okay, so money is everything above this line and credit is everything below this line. Okay, so what lesson do we take from this? What counts as money and what counts as credit depends on the situation, and it depends on who you are, and it depends on the layer of hierarchy you're talking about. Okay, so instead of starting with definitions, this thing is money, this thing is credit, we're starting with concepts. Okay, so that we, in any individual situation, we ask ourselves, okay, what layer are we at? Okay, what things are credit, what things are money at this in this layer that we're talking about? Okay, so there's a hierarchy. I've indicated here 4 layers. There are, in fact, many more than that, and there's considerable differentiation within each of these layers, and we'll talk about that. So once you get used to thinking about a hierarchy, you'll see it everywhere. Okay, it will become obvious. That's the main point for today. So far, so good. This is a hierarchy of financial instruments. Financial instruments.